What is up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Breathe and Air podcast, where everyday action meets extraordinary mindset. Today we have a special guest. Me and this guy go back to, being teammates in college, and he is now a current Denver Bronco. Jonathan Harris, thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I was telling John a little bit earlier that I usually plot out a good amount of stuff for us to talk about in the show, and we're going straight into this one because it's been a little while since we've caught up, and I'm excited to hear how things have been on your end. So I kind of listen into our conversation on this one, but tell me a little bit about you, like your background, your childhood. Kind of give everybody a little premise.
Yeah, so I was definitely blessed growing up. I grew up in Chicagoland area in Aurora, Illinois. It's a western suburb of Chicago. I'm one of three brothers. The older brother who played football, he was one of my biggest role models growing up. Everything he did, I tried to do, and we kind of competed. We had a household competition in that. And I have a younger brother who also was in sports, but just didn't quite, take the same route as us. But he still was talented, and both my parents were, huge role models for me, huge influences in my life, and they really paved the way for all the success I've had up to this point. I'm blessed with the family I have, both, my immediate family and extended family. They've been extremely, supportive of me, and, just my faith in God and just my support from them has been huge for me throughout this entire process.
Yeah. So what was your football always your first love, like in high school growing up, or were you a multiple sport guy?
So I did football, track, and basketball in high school and in middle school, but I didn't start actually playing sports until seventh grade. I was just watching my older brother play football because he started pretty young. I think he played baseball or something else, but I knew I loved football. I just didn't know exactly what position I wanted to play. So I was always tall. I just never had the size. I was like 6'5", 220 when I first got to Lindenwood. That's where I get the nickname Slim. But no, it's definitely always been my number one sport. I actually did track for a year or two in college, and I decided football was what I needed to focus on at the time. And then, basketball is just kind of one of the things I feel like everyone tried at some point.
Yeah.
If you're an athlete, at some point you played basketball for a little bit. So did three sports growing up, and football's always been number one.
Yeah. What was the draw to track? Because I remember when you were kind of splitting time there, what made you want to do that, and what events were you doing?
So I was doing shot put and discus. What got me into track was my brother, as I mentioned in the beginning. And then my track coach, Roger Einbecker, in high school, he was still one of the best guys I've ever met in my life. And he was a great coach. He even coached some Olympians, but he was all bought in on, coaching us in track. And he didn't even work for the school. He did that kind of just his volunteer work. So I got pretty good at it. And then really the only reason I did it at Lindenwood is because I wanted some extra scholarship money. And I know I can go do this and get good at it. And it didn't really, I know it's going to sound arrogant, but it didn't take me much work to be decent at track. So I could still do football. I was lifting. I did a little bit of spring ball, but I was still just going and throwing track and beats and stuff. So really, I only did it in college for scholarship money, but I did love doing it. It was just something I did kind of extra to football.
Yeah, it seems like you had a similar situation to like a weight coach that I had in high school, where he was so much above a normal, what you would think is a high school weight coach, as far as the technique and the way that he coached and taught and did it for the love of the kids as well. So it's an easier transition for someone who has a good base knowledge like you did. And it doesn't help when you're as athletic as you are also. But
he definitely helped me a lot getting good at track. So
yeah, for sure. So tell us, as far as high school goes, you're doing these multiple sports, and then football comes along, you're excelling there. What was your recruitment process like?
Man, recruiting was so stressful. That's still to this day one of the most stressful processes I've had to deal with, in my life. So, like I said, I was 6'5". I was 220 soaking wet after a meal. I looked like probably a receiver that SEC schools recruit, but
Yeah.
No, I played left tackle and defensive end, but I was better at offensive line, strangely enough. So like I was an all-state left tackle, but teams were like, we can get you in, we can put weight on you, you can be a left tackle or guard or right tackle, whatever. Other teams were like, we want you to play D-line. I had a couple schools tell me like, you ever ran a route, you can play some tight end. I'm like, I don't have any tight end knowledge at all. So really what drew me to Lindenwood was that was the only school. First, Coach Melvin recruited me. So he was a huge influence throughout recruiting. And he's from a similar area as me. So Lindenwood was the only school that told me, like, we don't care. You could choose what you play. We just want you here. So, like, that's really what got me in Lindenwood. Then I visited the campus, and I was like, all right, I got to be here. I think UCM and Northwest Missouri were my other two top schools, but they both wanted me to play O-line.
Yeah.
And Lindenwood was kind of like, you can play whatever you want. We just want you. I was like, all right, I got to go now. So, and luckily everything worked out, but it wasn't easy at all.
Yeah. I think that's a huge upside to being able to go in to a Division II player. If you're someone that's kind of on the bubble, I know it was something for me as well, and I'm sure for you, where it's like, do I want to walk on preferred? Do I want to maybe make a position change to go to a Division I program, or do I want to come in and be able to make a difference automatically? And I mean, like you said, that was my thought process going. I'm like, Lindenwood, all right, I'll take the visit. Like, recruitment visits are fun. And then it's insane what they've done with, the facilities and the coaching staff that was there. Coach Melvin being amazing guy.
Lindenwood's come a long way from when we were there, when we first got there.
Man, it really.
Long way.
So tell me I'm interested to hear, your transition to obviously being in the NFL now and playing against the top tier talent. What was it like at the Division II level? How big of it's obviously a jump, but what was the difference there? What's the biggest difference?
It is significant, like you said. But they're at the same time, you have to have the mindset that these guys are put on the same jersey and helmet than I am. Like you can't be like, oh, he went to the University of Alabama, so maybe I don't win this rep. It's like, no, we're competing. Like you gotta when you step on the field, you gotta win at the end of the day. But there is a huge talent difference. I think the biggest difference for me was like certain things that I could get away with at Division II. Like let's say I was a little slower off the ball, or my pad level was too high. That's one of my issues now. I'm still kind of working on it. Like maybe my pad level is too high, or I don't quite get the right read. In Division II, I could maybe make up for that, still probably make a play. But in the NFL, that's the difference between me being 5 yards off the ball and making a play. So like you just have to be locked in every rep. And there's some guys you go against, it's like, you play where? Like you were all American, like especially like during rookie mini camp and during that like early phase, there's some dudes that you'd be like, you might not have played at Lindenwood if you went there, but like you're in the NFL, we're in the same position, but you went to a bigger school. So,
Right.
But the talent, there's, a huge jump in talent, but you kind of get used to it over time.
Right. It seems like, a lot of guys that I talk to when they're doing, those little things, like you said, like if you get off the ball a little slower, that's the biggest difference. How has that, focusing on small details rolled over in other things in your life? Like what has football kind of taught you in that aspect?
It's huge. Like, those little things make a huge difference. And I know, especially like our last few years at Lindenwood, that's all Coach Stu preach is like focusing on the little things. But even in everyday life, not just football related, but just making sure you're doing the right things, day in and day out, so you can do the more important things right. So especially for me with what I'm doing now with training and stuff like that, like I can go to the weight room every day, but if I'm not doing what I need to be doing off the field, I'm basically being counterproductive, and the stuff I'm doing when I'm working out, is pointless. But just making sure I'm, stretching and doing the extra recovery stuff, and looking at my playbook here and there, and just doing extra things that'll help me progress. Basically, that's more important almost than the big things. If that makes
Right.
sense.
Yeah. For those who don't know, Jon was a captain. How many years? 2, 3
2 years.
2 years at Lindenwood. And I'd like to say Jon was the, quiet type of leader that leads by example. That when he did talk, everyone listened, but he led by example. So where did that come from? Like that hard work and leading by example, the doing the extra rep. Is that something that you developed, or is that something that you feel like you've always had?
Um, Honestly, I'd say the way I live is more of a personality trait. Like when I walk in the room, I'm not going to be the first person you hear. I might be the first person you see, but like I'm not going to walk into a room talking like. And then I'm all about like this credibility. And
Mhm.
if I'm telling you to do something, and I don't do it myself, then I have no right to tell you to do it. So that's always been like my two biggest things. Is not if you're just always talking to people, they're not gonna eventually they're gonna tune you out. And
Yeah.
then like if I'm telling someone else to do something and I'm not doing it myself, then no one like then you have no credibility as a leader. So that's like something I always prided myself on. I definitely think, especially in college, like early on when I was put in leadership roles, I could have been better vocally.
Yeah.
But it was kind of one of those things where I didn't talk much. So when I did talk, I feel like people actually listened to what I was saying. But I
Yeah.
definitely prefer to lead by example rather than vocally.
There's a lot to be said for that. And like you said, whenever you did talk, people were listening because it's like, okay, if he's saying something here, it's important, right? But I really do think that, I mean, that's huge. Leading by example, it definitely is. Tell me a little bit about your psyche, you know, ending college. You're an All-American. You're putting together these great seasons, obviously, making a huge impact and making some buzz to get into the league. We had seen Connor Harris do it a little bit before and had a lot of, those scouts coming in to practice and watching and stuff. So what was your mental mindset and mental space coming in, finishing out that last year, knowing that you had a shot at the NFL?
Yeah. Connor was a huge example for me. I don't know if I ever told him, face to face, but just seeing the way that he dealt with all the attention he was getting from the outside, and Connor, he's not the type of guy who's gonna, boast and really pay much attention to that. He was focused on winning at Lindenwood. So like seeing him do it that was a huge example for me when it was my time to do it. But your mindset definitely has to shift because I'm used to being the guy at Lindenwood, and then you go basically back to redshirt freshman year. It's really lower than that. But I started working right away, and I think that was definitely an advantage I had because I was working with Coach Travis at Lindenwood for a little bit before I went to Nashville and trained for a pro day. But I think the small school everyone looks at it as like a disadvantage, but in my mind, like I already had the mindset that I got to do a little bit more, I got to do a little bit better. Like you were talking about the little things, like I got to do the little thing perfect, and so that transition as far as the mindset I had to have in order to have success, as far as training and stuff like that, that was pretty easy, honestly. But there was definitely a gap in kind of my talent and development compared to the guys I was training with. It wasn't ginormous, but there were things that they had been exposed to, things they learned that I just wasn't exposed to at Lindenwood. And then, even that process is kind of stressful because I was in Nashville and I'm back in Lindenwood, in Chicago, and yeah, so there's a lot going on, but my faith and just patience and taking it one day at a time is really what got me through that process.
Yeah. So when you finally get the call and you're like, hey, I'm going to have a shot here at a NFL roster, or at least, get my foot in the door. What was that moment like?
Yeah, so I was an undrafted free agent. So I had a bunch of calls like around that sixth, seventh round. I had a bunch of calls coming in, but I'm telling my family because every call I get, oh, it's getting drafted, it's getting drafted. I'm like, calm down. I'm talking to my agent. They were like, different coaches calling me like, "Hey, we're not going to draft you, but we want you to come here." So it's like college recruiting all over again. But
Right.
you only got a couple hours to make your decision. You don't have 2-3 visits to make a decision. So I was talking to my agent a lot, and I got my family in my ear. I didn't have too much family, but it was a stressful process. But I think when I sat down, I thought about because they wanted me to go to Chicago because that's my hometown team, and at the time that was the best scenario for me. But it was a blessing. It was overwhelming, and really, it was for me. I was happier seeing my family because I knew how much they had poured into me to get me to where I wanted to be. For them, that was like everything. But for me, in my mind, I'm like, all right, the work's just now starting. But for them, they're like, oh, we got to celebrate. Like, I'm like, no, I need to find a weight room or something. Like, I was ready to go to work, honestly. But that whole process, it was great. It was stressful, I'm sure, for my parents, but that moment is something that we'll always cherish. That moment.
Yeah. As growing up in Chicago, I mean, how was that? Being able to put that jersey on.
Yeah, it was definitely bittersweet, and I didn't really, I grew up in Chicago, so I knew how many fans the Bears had, but I just didn't quite understand it until I was like at camp, because like growing up, I didn't really go to the games or the camp or anything like that. I always followed the team, and I liked a bunch of the players, but I'd never really been around like the games that much. My first ever NFL game was actually the one I played in, the preseason game against Carolina. There's so many fans, even in Denver, like just the following of fans and like the support. And Chicago's a little different. They're very fair weather fans. So they'll cheer for you when you're doing good, but the minute you don't, they're on you. But it was definitely a bittersweet, kind of a surreal moment. I had a few eye-opening moments. It's like, especially during camping in, we had this thing before the season. They like introduced us all, and there was a bunch of people out there, and like just seeing that, it made it really real, like what I was really getting myself into.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll turn the tide a little bit. You're getting married soon.
Oh, man, yes, sir.
Uh, how has it been, balancing chasing your dream and trying to continue to have like a successful relationship? I know you and Sarah have been together for a long time, but how has that been, trying to have that balance?
I think the best thing about that is that she supports me just as much as I push my own dreams,
Right.
if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
She's been there since before I was even good at Lindenwood. That was like sophomore year college. So, she's been there with me, supporting me every step of the way, and that never stopped. And we've been long distance, and there's good days, there's bad days, but
Yeah.
she's been supporting me. So that's really been what's kept me going and kept us going, really. And she's out there in nursing school, killing it in nursing school. So I've been supporting her too, and I know that one day we're gonna
Uh,
achieve all our dreams and hopefully live a long, long, long life together. So her support's been huge for me.
yeah, that's so huge to have a partner who, is a part of what you're doing, but at the same time knows that your dreams aren't theirs and they get to, support you and push you in that. And I think you guys definitely have that. So super happy for you, man. Seeing all the guys getting married. It's so awesome. You guys, happy and finding your person. So you mentioned though, when you came into college, you're soaking wet, 220, slim body. And then a transformation happened, a big transformation. So it was like around junior year or so, sophomore year, you put on some weight. So tell me a little bit about that weight transformation, body transformation that you went through.
Yeah. So in high school, like I didn't eat very well, but like my metabolism was so high that I could eat whatever I want, and then I'd probably lose weight after I ate. So like I'm always like, what is going on with my body? So then I get to college and food is always readily available. It may not have been great when we first got there, with Evans and Spelman, but really I learned it's gonna sound crazy, but like eating breakfast is what like really got my body transformed. Because I was a cereal granola bar, like, oh, I'm good, I'll get a couple extra minutes of sleep kind of guy, like breakfast wise. But then when I started like really like packing on calories in the morning, that's when I started gaining some weight. And then the weight room was huge, obviously. And at first, even when I got to college, it seemed like no matter how much I ate, I just was not gaining weight. And you know, they told me to just keep being patient, especially Coach Travis. He's like, just keep being patient, keep being patient. And then it was like that summer, my sophomore to junior year. I don't know. I went from like 245 to like 270. I don't know what happened, but That was a huge transition. That was a big moment in kind of the development of my career. Because I did pretty well my sophomore year, but that sophomore to junior jump is really what catapulted me my success at Lindenwood.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I just remember you coming back and I was like, whoa. I mean, you were always a strong, bigger guy, but that was a huge transition and big for you as well. What made you want to stay on the defensive side of the ball?
Coach Ross tried so hard for me to go to O-line, but O-line is just so different in college. And, in high school, you can just line up and you're just blocking whoever's across from you and just trying to drive them as far off the ball. College is, you got to know this scheme, that scheme, this block. There's just too much thinking, and I could not see myself in those knee braces over there sliding. I was like, nah, it's more fun over here. But, I thought about it for a second because I knew Coach Ross was trying to get me over there, but
Yeah.
D-line was where my heart was. I wanted to make plays.
Yeah, there's something to be said for that, for sure. Tell me a little bit about your training. You could even talk about in college, but especially now making that transition, how has it changed as far as your diet and your training?
Yeah. So, my diet, I'm kind of just maintaining weight right now, so I don't have like an extra strict diet, but I definitely eat pretty clean.
What are you sitting at?
Like 290 right now. But training, I'm still kind of trying different things as far as recovery, but I train 5 to 6 times a week. Um, I don't know if you want me to go through every single day, but like Monday is, acceleration, lower body.
Yep.
Tuesday, change of direction, upper body. And then Wednesday is like a recovery day, active recovery day. And then Thursdays, like top end speed. And even though I don't use it too much, but lower body. And then, Friday's the heavy conditioning and upper body. But I just got into hot yoga. I do that on Saturdays. Kind of was using it at first. It's like a recovery thing, just something to kind of make my body feel better on the weekend. But it's a workout. I figured out the hard way. But then Sundays I take completely off, just sit around kind of and get ready for the next week. But it's not too busy. 2 hours, about 2 hours a day, and then stretching and eating throughout the day. Trying to find trying to find hobbies, but just really focusing on training right now.
Yeah. What is the diet like? I know you're eating throughout the day, trying to keep on your weight, but what does it primarily consist of?
Protein, a little bit of carbs, vegetables. I love salmon. I'm a huge fish guy. I try to stay away from red meats and stuff like that, but salmon, turkey, a lot of chicken, and then a couple cheat meals here and there. You can't work this hard. You got to have a few here and there.
That's right. Yeah, it's funny you said that about hot yoga because I have a buddy who had a short stint in the NFL as well, and he lives out here in Little Rock with me. And I was like, man, I kind of want to do some hot yoga. And he's telling me about a class I should go try. And I said, okay, well, I'm going to go, work out tomorrow morning, and then I'm going to hit the class in the afternoon. He was like, no, you're not. What do you mean? It's a yoga class. He said, no, you're not. Not this one. He said, I tried to do that one time, and this is when I was in the league. And he said, he said, I couldn't make it through because you're holding yourself up. You're holding poses with lower body too.
Yeah.
Tough.
I catch a full body cramp if I try working out and then going in there. Crazy. And then I'm in the class and there's these like older men and women in there just flowing right through it. And I'm over here struggling, shaking, dripping sweat. But, I'm getting better at it now. But it's definitely not easy.
Yeah. I'm huge into sauna, hot therapy, cold therapy, which I'm sure is integrated in your recovery. But yoga itself can be, a meditation of sorts, especially along with being in a hot environment like that. Do you find yourself like catching a flow kind of when you're in there, or is it still just kind of a struggle?
Oh, absolutely. The lady who teaches our class, she's always like, yoga is 99% mental, 1% physical. And I'm like, no, it's not. I'm in here struggling. But then when you really focus on your breathing and just keep everything outside of those walls, outside of the walls just for that hour. Like, you really do. It's like a surreal feeling, like you're just kind of flowing through it. But there are moments where it's like, I'm not thinking about how much I'm struggling right now. I'm not thinking about breathing or any of that. But
Yeah.
it definitely helps, like your mental. It helps everything, but definitely helping my flexibility, which is my main goal. But it's helping me mentally too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. What have been some of, if any, of your mental practices? I know, like we said, physical activity and that training is a mental practice in itself. But as far as recovery, has there been anything outside of it that you kind of use, like visualization or anything like that?
Um, there's nothing specific, but I'm definitely you have to find, especially at this level, because there's so much stress, like from football itself. There has to be a work-life balance, and I feel like at Lindenwood, I didn't really have to have that because I had school, and like, yeah, I was thinking about football, but there was other things I was worried about too. But like, there's just too much going on in life that you to just focus on practice and film and all that kind of stuff. So really just finding things to do, like whether it's playing the game, watching movies. I know it's not meditation or anything like that, but just taking your mind completely away from football related activities. That's why the off season is so important. Like, I may look at some playbook stuff, but it may be just maybe an hour or two of me looking through my playbook and maybe just quizzing myself on plays just to make sure I don't completely forget it. But there has to be a balance in there as well. And this offseason, I took a lot of time to do like some career development because I know at some point my time in the league is going to end. Hopefully, no time soon. But I did an NFLPA externship. That's when me and Tay, he worked for Old Dominion, and
Yeah.
I was doing some work with them, just learning some things about athletic administration because that's kind of what I want to get into when I'm done. I want to be a AD one day, but that was a huge opportunity, and then I've just been doing some other career stuff. But
Yeah.
to answer your question, like having that work-life balance is what's helped me on the mental.
Yeah, no, that's huge. That really is huge. And kudos to you for thinking it forward because, and it's a short-lived game sometimes,
It is.
It really is. It really is. Speaking of that, what is some of the best things that you've done for recovery for your body physically?
Massages and like getting adjusted, stuff like that. Ice baths are huge for me, especially during the season. I'm in there pretty much every day. Got some Normatex, a hypervolt thing, but I'm the kind of guy I'll try anything as far as like recovery. But I'm definitely now starting to figure out exactly what my body needs to be in tip top shape. Sorry.
Yeah. No, I think that's crucial for anybody if it comes to diet, physical exercise. Like, you got to find what works for you. There's so many
Yeah.
that are pitched at you like, oh, this is going to help you do this or that. When in reality, we're all different. Our bodies are all different. What foods work well for us may not work well for some others. And I think that is to be said about training as well. So tell me a little bit about when you got in and you get a new playbook slapped in front of you. What was the difference there on the defensive side of the ball, learning a new playbook? And was it very different from a college playbook, or was it pretty simple?
It was a whole lot different because at Lindenwood we were in 4-3, and when I got to Chicago and even in Denver we had similar playbooks at both teams. It was a 3-4, so the playbook, the technique, pretty much everything that I did in Lindenwood is completely different. And at first, I kind of struggled a little bit at first, not with the playbook stuff. Like I knew the plays, I knew where I needed to be, but like technique wise, I kind of turned into a robot because I'm a perfectionist, especially when it comes to stuff like this. I'm like, can't mess up. It's small,
Yeah.
there's very little room for error, in this league, especially in the position that I'm in right now. But I kind of had to like reevaluate my game and kind of get back to the things that got me here, the things that I was good at in college. And obviously, I can't do the same exact things I did in college. Taking that technique but still using things that I was good at before and kind of incorporating it into that. But it's very different. we're not doing anything else. So, it's still kind of one of those things like in college, there's really no excuse for not knowing the plays. We get the iPad and you're sitting here with it all day. So, like, getting to know the plays are easy, but obviously performing them, what's important is definitely the more.
Yeah. You were in the league and in this area during all the craziness that has happened with the pandemic. What was that like as far as keeping in touch with coaches and even just the state of the NFL at that time?
Yeah. Well, we were definitely blessed because we didn't have to. Fortunately, I didn't have to miss any paychecks really. We still had OTAs, but it was all over Zoom like we're doing now. And camp looked different, and there was testing, and there was different protocols, and you had to wear a mask here, you had to be 6 feet away, like everyone else in the world is doing right now. But fortunately for us, we were kind of in our own little bubbles. We weren't like the NBA was, but we were all kind of in the same area, doing the same thing. And then when things first started, everything was over Zoom. But at that point, everyone was just kind of training and getting the playbook stuff down anyway. So I think we're one of the fortunate leagues. Obviously, there's a lot of change and things that are going to change in the future as well. But we were lucky to be able to still do something, even if it wasn't everything. We'll see what happens this year.
Yeah. Who are some of your favorite teammates that you've had the opportunity to play with?
Really any of the D linemen. Like, I've been blessed to be part of two great, D line groups.
Yeah.
We got some comedians for sure. But as far as like watching dudes like Akeem Hicks was absolutely free, like one of the biggest dudes I've ever met in my life. And he helped me a lot when I was in Chicago. I sat next to him in meetings, so he would, along with my D line coach, he would kind of help me through things. And I've made some close friends, and like I said, it's just like college. You think that because these dudes are making all these money and most of them have kids, that they'd be serious all the time, but locker room here is the same as locker room in Lindenwood, if not crazier, honestly. But,
Yeah.
no, I definitely had some great teammates, and I have some pretty close friends, Draymond Jones and Deion Sizer from Denver. We've gotten pretty close just because we all came in the same time. But yeah, really any of the D linemen. But there's definitely been there's some stories for sure.
Oh, I can imagine. Where do you see yourself in 5 years from now?
Hopefully with a contract playing on the team. And I know how this stuff goes, though. It's all a business, and that's one part that you really can't prepare for. Is it's to the people upstairs, it's all just a big chess match. They're trying to get pieces in the right place so that they can win games, get a championship. And they don't care anything about your life, where you are, your family, any of that kind of stuff. So, family-wise, I want to obviously be married and have kids. That's the most important thing to me. NFL, I'm just hoping that I can establish myself, get some good film out there, and just hopefully keep getting opportunities. Even if I'm bouncing around every year, I'm still on the team, still getting film. So
Yeah.
I hope at some point to get a decent contract or a long-term contract. But the way this stuff works, it's not guaranteed for anyone really. But that's my goal, I would hope, as far as playing.
Yeah. With you knowing that it is a business and that is how it goes, what is your mindset that you take into practice and your preparation?
Like you're always being judged. Like every day you're fighting for your job. Like that's one of the biggest differences from college. Because there was days in college, I'm sure you had them too. Like you wake up like, man, I just really don't feel like doing this. Those 6 a.m. lion hearts. Like there was days I'm like, man, I really don't feel like doing this. But like if you have that mindset, you got to flip a switch every single day because every day you're fighting for your job. And I know it may sound dramatic, but it's true. Like the day they feel like they don't need you, you will be gone, especially in my position. Now, Von Miller, he could probably come to practice and mess around a day or two, but like me, I got to be on every day. And not that I don't make mistakes because everyone makes mistakes, but if you make a mistake and you get yelled at about it, you better correct it next time, especially with my coach. Crazy. But,
Yeah.
you're fighting for your job every single day. And even if you're playing well sometimes, like, they may need another position more than they need you. And at that time, they just have to sacrifice you in order to. So it's just so much that goes on that, one, you have no clue. They could be talking about you upstairs in the offices every day, but you have no clue. So really, you're just fighting for your job every day.
What are some of the biggest lessons that you've learned from playing?
Enjoy it. Don't forget to enjoy it. That's something that I learned in Chicago because that's kind of when that work-life balance, when I kind of had to learn that work-life balance because I was always focused on football, 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 especially like first coming out and then, first getting into the league, undrafted free agent. And then I signed the practice squad with Chicago. Week 3, I'm suiting up. So I'm like, it was a quick turnaround. Although I played, I was still like, I can't even explain how nervous I was, but I was so focused on football all the time that I like kind of forgot to enjoy certain moments.
Mhm.
And like I think my mom kept trying to tell me that, and a few of my teammates were just like, make sure you have fun with it. Like at the end of the day, it is football. It's definitely not like high school when it's truly all just fun, but just to enjoy it. I think that's my biggest lesson. Like it is, it's what I do. It's not who I am. So, I had to treat it that way kind of.
That's huge. I feel like any of us can relate to that when you get so locked into something or you let, outside sources kind of bog you down from enjoying the specific moment. You miss that, present moment, which is so important. Tell me what your definition of success is.
Um, it's a hard one. I mean, obviously just achieving my goals, but I'm the type of person, once I achieve a goal, I'm not gonna sit back and smile at that goal. I'm gonna make a new one. So, but I make attainable goals. So like I'm not gonna say I'm gonna be an all pro next like this next year, but I'm gonna maybe tell myself that I'm gonna make the team or something like that. Like obviously it's not easy, but that's to me is achieving my goals and being able to set new goals, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. You mentioned faith earlier in the show. What does your faith mean to you, and how has it helped you in this journey?
It means everything. I know that, God has a plan for my life and
Mhm.
he orders my steps and everything that I do, I have to do to honor him at the end of the day. So I don't know what tomorrow holds. And that's huge for me, especially in this league. Like I was just talking about, like you're fighting for your job every day, but at the end of the day, you have no control. They have control, but at the end of the day, God has control over what happens with your life or the opportunities that you get. And it's just my job to take advantage of those and give him thanks when I can. So
Yeah.
faith is huge. And it keeps me going, keeps me motivated, and it's going to be a huge part of my life going forward as well, especially with the new adventures I'm on right now. So it's huge.
What are some of your hobbies? You talk about the work-life balance. So outside of football, what are some things you enjoy?
I game a little bit. I'm not going to say I'm a gamer because I'm not on it that much. I like working out. That's I kind of got to be careful what I do outside of
Right.
my training, but I do like just even if it's just going to get on the bike. Or like I like listening to music. Like I mentioned earlier, watching TV a little bit. So pretty basic hobbies. I'm trying to find some new ones. I think I want to try golf a little bit.
Go.
I haven't done anything but top golf and mini golfing, so I got a long ways to go, but I got the time, so I might get into that a little bit this off season.
Yeah. What's in the headphones these days? What are you listening to?
Uh, I like variety. I'll listen to anything pretty much. OG is probably my favorite right now. Chicago guy. Uh, but yeah, I like variety. Honestly, you all got me to listen to a little bit of country, but I'm not bumping that in my headphones too much. I'll be honest.
The workout music. That's some relaxing music for sure.
Yeah, nah.
Well, good. Man, tell me, as you're going through this journey of, being a football player, and you kind of spoke about what's next for you, what what makes you want to go along the path of being an athletic director? Do you just want to be around the sport, or kind of what prompted you to even think about that?
Yeah. So, they always say like give back to the game, and football's given me so much. It's really shaped me into, along with my faith and my family, football and sports and the relationships I've built over time. It's been huge in shaping me into who I am today. So it'd be a disservice not to give back to the game in some way. And most people do that through coaching, but I just don't think coaching is my calling. Like, I don't mind if I coached on the side or if some kid came up to ask me for advice on something because I played. Like, I'm completely fine with that, obviously. But, I want to be around the game, but I don't want to be on the field. And I feel like, in athletic administration, there's a lot of different roles, but at the end of the day, your goal is to put the kids in the best position to be successful and like still have an impact on their life, but off the field. And I think that's the part of being a college athlete that you forget about. That at some point, football's going to end. Some it may not end until 10 years down the line if you get an opportunity to play at the next level. But for most, it's going to end after that last game your senior year, if you make it to there. That's not easy. But just I want to be the person who can influence them off the field to make sure that they're thinking about the academics, the things that they're doing to set themselves up for that's after all or whatever sport they may be. And I feel like, athletic administrations, if you think about like Nagel at our school, he was our academic advisor. Like guys like him, I talk to Nagel all the time, and I don't know how many times I've even talked to him about grades. Like most of the time it was just him just talking about life, or he's the kind of guy who has a million stories. So like just things like that, and you can have an influence on someone's life off the field, because at the end of the day, the coaches, they're going to do everything they need to do for you to put your best result on the field. And there's some great coaches out there who care about their kids off the field or whatever, but athletic administrators are in a unique position where they can really influence those kids, and I want to do that. That has always been interesting to me. It has always interested me, and something that I really want to pursue.
Yeah, I agree. I think you'll definitely flourish in that position, and it is something to look back and say, wow, sports gave me all these lessons and opportunities and abilities, but at the end of the day, it's like, look at all these men and women that influenced my life and helped my path, and giving back definitely would be rewarding. I'm interested to hear this because we're maybe 2 of the 5 or 6 maybe that came in a class of about 20 at Lindenwood as freshmen that stuck it out. I might be wrong in this, but I'm trying to think, maybe like 5 or 6 of us stayed.
All right.
So what kind of made you stay? Because we went through multiple, head coaching changes and all these things that, could have easily taken us a different route. What made you stick with Lindenwood during that time?
Can't lie. I'd be lying if I sat here and said that I never thought about leaving, especially after that coaching change. But really, it was, one, the guys, guys like you and, obviously our closest friends and everyone else around. It was the guys that, that played a huge part. And then kind of just that position that I had worked towards getting myself to at that point, especially when we had the coaching change. Like I felt like I was a leader on the team, and when things were kind of going on, I feel like sometimes it may have been a little frustrating. Like if something happened, I was the guy who people looked to see my reaction to it, to kind of like see how they were going to react to it sometimes. So I feel like I needed to be there in that moment, especially with all the work that I had put in to get to that point. I didn't just want to leave that and abandon that. I had to go start that somewhere else.
Yeah.
So, there was a lot of things, and, a little bit of it was just kind of comfort with that university and being there. And I'm like, where am I going to go? Everyone says they're going to leave, but where are you really going to go? Like,
Right.
But I did consider it maybe here and there, but not too seriously. But a lot, those were the main things that kind of kept me there.
Yeah, I agree. I had very similar feeling there. Just, knowing that we had put in time and that we all came in with that vision to help turn the program around. And I mean, they're having great success, you know? So
Yeah.
I think we can say we helped lay the groundwork and lay some framework for the great job that Stu's doing over there with that program.
Yeah.
So we can definitely tip our hats to that. But tell me about the lessons that you've learned. You spoke about the locker room. And what is one lesson from the locker room or from being a part of a football team or organization that you wish the rest of the world could see?
Um, the locker room, man. We had a lot of good memories, you know, in the locker room. But I think one thing that I took away is that, you know, I was better friends with some guys in the locker room than I was others. But like at the end of the day, I could sit down at a table with anyone who ever played in the black and gold at Lindenwood and have a conversation with them,
Yeah.
laugh with them. We could share some memory. Like it just taught me how important building genuine relationships are. And obviously, like I said, there's people I hung out with more outside of the locker room and training and things like that. But I took pride in making sure I knew my teammates and they knew who I was, and I wasn't just the guy telling them what to do. Like so, as far as just the world, like how important it is to develop genuine relationships, even if it's someone that you don't see yourself hanging out with outside of football, or
Yeah.
maybe someone you don't even like. It's just not that I don't like any of my teammates, but just developing relationships, how important it is. Really, that's what I really take away from all those laughs in the locker room over the years.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Jon, thank you so much for your time, man. I got one more question for you. For anybody that's listening, that may be an athlete or just someone listening and seeing the success that you've had, what is one tip that you would give them to, go and reach a goal that they're wanting to attain?
Persistence is key, man. Like just never stop. And there'll be things that you want to attain. You'll come short in some areas where you may fail sometimes, but you just give up after the first time something doesn't go your way, then you're not going to get anything in life. So not just with athletics, but just with anything in life. If you want it, go get it. And there's going to be people that tell you you should, people that tell you you shouldn't, people that tell you you won't do it. But persistence is key, and you have to look yourself in the mirror. You have to want it for yourself. You can't rely on other people to tell you what you should and shouldn't do, and you can't look to other people to motivate you either. So you just have to put your head down and work towards whatever you want in life.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think that's a good spot to end because that's some extreme advice for any area of life there. And Jon, thank you so much for your time, man. Thanks for coming on. Best of luck going ahead this season. I'm excited.
Appreciate it, bro.
Yeah. Thank you all for tuning in to another episode with me and former Bronco Jonathan Harris. You can find him on Instagram at Jon_Harris77. Go check him out. Give him some love. Give him a follow. If y'all enjoyed this episode, hit that subscribe button and leave a comment and rating for us on Apple Podcasts, or reach out to me and Jon if something stuck out to you. Either of us, I'm sure, would be extremely happy to hear your comments about the show. So thank y'all so much for tuning in, and have a great rest of your week.
Appreciate you.